go to the mayor-elect of Tulsa right now, State Representative Monroe Nichols. And Monroe, Representative Nichols, look, first of all, congratulations. Happy to see you getting elected. It has to be of a concern to you, though, when you look, going to be the mayor of a city, and when you look at what's happening in D.C. and you look at some of these picks, man, oh man, a lot of cities and a lot of states are going to be on their own over the next 4 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for having me on again, Roland. I really appreciate it. And you're absolutely right. Like, I've thought about it a lot. Like, we are going to have to come together as a city. I don't know what it's going to look like from the standpoint of federal investment and what education is going to look like. It's a heavy concern for us as a city. Certainly, Tulsa Public Schools, our largest urban school district, educates more kids of color than any district in the state. And so, like, what I'm hearing, the rhetoric is actually very concerning. And it's something that's really, top of mind for me. I want to be optimistic and wait and see. I'm struggling to be optimistic right now, but it not looking great particularly for urban cities across this country.
Yeah, and the reason that's so important because you heard nothing but attacks on urban cities, and Democratic-run cities are trash and they're awful and they're cesspools of violence and on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, and everybody also forgets, Roland, that we're also centers of commerce and economic development and all these. So it's like, hey man, we're producing all the money we're using in this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Forget that part. Everybody forgets that part.
Right. See, that's the thing that I'm always trying to remind people. So you got Republicans in Mississippi who love trash in Jackson, but Jackson, Mississippi supplies the largest amount of sales tax to the state more than anybody else. When you start talking about Oklahoma, you're talking about Oklahoma City and Tulsa. When it comes to who's sending that money to the state. And so I always get a kick when that happens, how people complain about that, but they ain't got no problem with the money that's being generated in these urban cities.
Another thing we learned during COVID, Roland, is that when rural medicine has been gutted across the state, where's everybody to go to the hospital? When we got these issues, they got to come to the urban centers. And so we all got to be partners on this thing, man. And, look, we have our challenges in urban cities all across the country, but we provide a disproportionate amount of services for the entire state, which we're happy to do. And I think we have to be real, and mayors are going to have to come together on a really strong federal agenda to be really clear with the federal government and what we need. And, unfortunately, sometimes that's color in politics. I got elected in a nonpartisan race. I hope that as we go and ask for things that are necessary for people in this city and in the state, that we get some good reception there, and we get past all this rhetoric and we get to the things that's going to impact people's lives: affordable housing, education, economic development, those kinds of things. I'm like I said, I'm extremely concerned.
Talk about that, the healthcare piece. What is happening in Tulsa with those surrounding areas? We know in North Carolina, Mississippi, other places, when these rural hospitals close, I mean, bottom line is folks got to have some place to go. Is that what you're also seeing happen, where Tulsa is having, that you're not just focusing on the people in your city, you're now actually a regional, if you will, hospital system? Absolutely.
We found that during COVID. Look, Oklahoma took forever to pass Medicaid expansion. We had to do it through the ballot. We couldn't get it done in the legislature because, politics, but we got it done on the ballot. But the problem is the rural infrastructure wasn't there. So it wasn't like an immediate, you pass Medicaid expansion and all of a sudden rural medicine comes back. It takes some time for these things to be able to come on. So when we have a pandemic or you have specialty services, you got to come to the urban core to get them. And the fact is, like I said again, we are carrying a disproportionate amount of the load, and that's okay. But what are we also having a challenge with, Roland? We're not producing enough physicians in this country right now. We're not producing enough nurses in this country right now. We're not producing enough family medicine folks, especially care. So what we know is if we don't continue to get aggressive resources coming out of the federal government, even cities are going to struggle to meet the needs of these larger states. And so, there's a lot at stake in this thing, man. And I'm very concerned. I'm tracking these different appointments and all that kind of stuff. It has a real impact to people, not just in these urban cities, but everybody has to understand if it's not good for your urban core, it's not going to be good for the rest of the state, because that's where commerce is, that's where medicine is, that's where most of your higher education institutions are, those types of things. If we don't get it right in the urban areas, our states, particularly in these red states, it's going to be a real challenge for us.
Well, the other issue you're facing in these red states, they've been so anti-abortion. You've got OBGYNs and other doctors who say, I don't want to go there. That now impacts the babies that are born in Tulsa, in the state of Oklahoma. I saw some story that because of what happened in Louisiana, the top OBGYNs were leaving New Orleans.
Well, and that does happen, right? And it also impacts our ability to attract new business here, because you have businesses that don't want to go in places where their employees might not be able to get the health care they need. And what we know about a lot of these states where abortion's been outlawed, it's not just about abortion services. There's a ton in the way of health care for women that gets thrown by the wayside, and women's lives are at risk. And then you got a lot of medical professionals that actually don't know what is and what isn't against the law. Even if you have a baby that's not viable, if you got, where the mother's health is at stake, a lot of these folks, these medical professionals, don't know, am I going to get prosecuted if I do something? And so they're trying to make a decision: do I save somebody's life, or do I risk my license? Do I risk going to jail? And that's just not a good environment. And what I believe is going to be true is you're probably going to see some movement. At least I hope. Now that it's almost like where the dog catches the truck finally. And the dog has now caught the truck, and now there's going to have to be some rolling back of some of these restrictions, because you cannot provide appropriate health care for women under the current environment that we're in right now.
Last question I have for you. You get a lot of people all around the country. They are sitting here going crazy. You got all this Monday morning quarterbacking. Oh, what happened? You got to completely blow up the Democratic Party. You've got the Vice President Kamala Harris and her team. They screwed up messaging, things along those lines. As a newly elected mayor, as a state representative, what would you say to Democrats who are freaking out because of the election last week?
I think we got to get back to basics, man. I was lucky to win my race with 56% of the vote, which means a lot of Republicans in Tulsa supported me. I think they supported me because we just talked about issues. I listened to their stories. I always say you can't learn something that you already know. So you got to listen to people, and you got to make sure that what they're telling you is reflected in public policy. And we got to get to the place where we're really talking about things that impact people, but we cannot forget that we've got to spend the time there with them. So I don't think this is time to blow anything up. I just think that we have a disconnect. And I don't really think that we've done a good enough job overall as a country understanding what's at stake in these elections. We always think that it's Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. It's not those are the names on the ballot. But what's on the ballot is affordable housing. What's on the ballot is the future of education, healthcare services, national security, the future of democracy, like all those things. And we have to make sure that we're not only just talking about those things to people, but hearing back from them and making sure that the policies and the things that we're offering are the things that people are telling us that they need. And I think if we do that, it's just a back to basics. I don't think you got to overthink this thing, man. I think it's just a back to basics thing. I really do believe, and it's the reason why I've been a proud Democrat in the legislature. I believe we have to offer is what's good for the country, but we cannot pretend as though folks who are on the other side of the aisle, those voters, are voters that we should not engage. We have to engage them. We have to talk to them. We got to make sure we widen the tent in the party, but it is really just back to basics and meeting people where they are.
All right. State Representative Monroe Nichols, the newly elected mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma. We surely appreciate it. Thanks a bunch.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.